Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today, our topic is the top 3 things that you can do to secure your company. But there's a whole lot more on security than just that. And we have 2 guests today. So we have John Gibson with Just Right, and also Lance Keltner with UNI Computers. And hello, you guys.
Hey,
How's it
Chris.
going?
Hey, Lance.
Nice to be here again.
Yeah, thank you. So, I hear a lot on when people talk about cybersecurity and threats and being hacked. And a lot of people think or say that, I'm a nobody. I'm just a small little business, or maybe you're, mid-size, but why would someone target me? I don't have anything important. Why would a hacker spend time to try and get into my systems? And they're sometimes people are being targeted, like the pipeline, for example.
hmm
But most of the time they're just looking for the easiest way to get in, to hack with the biggest payoff. They're looking for the quickest way to get something done and get the big money,
Mhm.
least amount of work. And that's not necessarily targeting people, but just doing open scans and just looking for who they can compromise the easiest, that people that aren't paying attention to security. And so it's real important that you get at least these standard security protection in place.
hmm
And so I wanted to talk about that. Lance, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, we've been seeing that for a while now. It used to be that you kind of had to be targeted, or you were kind of okay. You didn't have to worry about it too much. But now that's kind of changed. In the past, handful of years, the bad guys have turned this into a business, and the best way to hit the most amount of people is to use automation. Just like the best way to do a lot of the stuff that we do is with automation. And so they are looking for everything all the time, and it's automatic 24/7, 365. It never sleeps. And they're seeing who's the low hanging fruit out there. Who can I get a foothold in, compromise in some way? Then when they find your network that maybe didn't have the protection it needed, or your computer or whatever, then they phone home and say, "Hey, look, I got one. Come on in and do your business." And that's when they really get to work. And then you have a person actually doing stuff hacking you. And so the key here, I believe, is to not be that low hanging fruit. And there's several things you have to have in place to not have that be the case.
Yeah, I actually have one example here recently. One of our clients had this camera system that was just given to them. It looked like almost like a Chinese knockoff security system, and no
Mm.
brand. Most of the documentation that we found on the internet was in some other language, but he insisted that he wants this. He wants to use it. Requires ports open from the internet, so it major exposure. You know what I'm trying to say. um, Exposing them to a lot of threats. And so what they insisted to do it. We did it, but we did it in a more of a security best practice way, is we isolated it so that if something happens with that, that it's only isolated to that camera itself and not the
Right.
rest of the network. If say it's compromised, can't get to other computers on the at the company, other servers or anything like that. So we just got a detection yesterday that all of a sudden the camera traffic from or the internet traffic from that camera increased by 5 times. It started
Mhm.
over flooding the firewall, so it was
Yeah.
up but dropped about every 15 minutes or so, and it was going to some other country. I don't have it up on my screen right now, but it was some overseas country that the traffic was going to. But so it may have been hacked, that camera system, but it still isolated what was impacted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually there's something called the NDAA, which governs. It's a requirement under one of the security standards, especially for anybody that's dealing with the federal government. And NDAA approved camera systems are required for anybody that works with the government. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name, what that acronym actually stands for, but it's been found that there's several Chinese, a lot of things are manufactured in China, and cameras and camera systems are among them. And specifically, Chinese companies have been banned for anybody that's doing government type contracting work because of that, because they're phoning home. So that probably is likely what's happening with there. So that's a good example of one of the shadow IT types of threats that we don't even knowingly know we're putting into environments. And so it's really important to have a IT specialist that's familiar with this type of stuff. So, that's why you have guys like us, right? So that we can advise.
Well, John, what do you think on requirements of cybersecurity for businesses?
One thing I think about security is the same no matter what you're talking about. So, if most people can visualize what security looks like if they're talking about their home, right? Because you have doors and you have windows and you have locks for those doors and windows. And you may even have like a wall or a fence. Other parts of security you might put in your home would be things like an alarm system, motion detectors, sensors, so that if a door opens or a glass breaks, that it, you hear something, you get an alarm, right? Or maybe you have a dog and the dog barks. You might also have some aspects of like the alarm system calls the police after 60 seconds if nobody puts in the code. Or maybe you have a gun and you take care of it yourself, or that dog, your killer chihuahua, eats the person trying to get in. And you might also have like Crime Watch or Neighborhood Watch type programs that help with that. Well, what I just did there is identified all the different elements that are part of security for our home. And if you were to categorize them, they actually break down to three things. There's protection elements like the doors, windows, locks, and the wall or fence. There's detection elements like your sensors and motion detectors and alarm system and maybe the dog. And then you've got the response elements, which are killer chihuahua eating the bad guy, the gun, you taking care of it yourself, the police responding, and most all of this will fall on our insurance if somebody were to get in. So those are protection, detection, response. Those are three primary elements of security. No matter what type of security you're talking about, you must have those things in place. Now, there's some interesting statistics around this when we look at businesses across the United States. A company called Gartner Research Group did a study of all IT spend, and when they looked at the spend for security alone, they found that 91% of security spend across all types of businesses in the United States was focused on the protection part of security only. Now, when you put that against some of the statistics, Wall Street Journal did a interview of the Department of Defense and FBI, and they found that the average amount of time that a business has malware, that's bad software, on their computer or network without them knowing about it is over 6 months. And the average amount of time before a company even realizes they've been breached is usually over a year. I think it was like 408 days. And that number changes year to year, but it's close to a year typically. And the way they find out is because there's a news story on TV or a press release or a magazine article, and then everybody starts to hear about it and talking about it. And I know everybody's heard of these breaches. We just had one recently, the Colonial Pipeline, right? Just to kind of give you an idea of security, they spent over $200 million on their IT, yet they still were breached. So, it's not how much money you throw at a thing. And when you look at that number of 91% of spend for IT as it pertains to security on protection only, they've missed completely detection and response. And again, this is where the greatest need is, I think, is that we need to have ways to mitigate our risk that are associated with this, because anybody can be hacked. Anybody. Many of us, I'm sure you guys both saw Kevin Mitnick. He does live presentations where he'll have somebody volunteer, give me some information. I'll show you how quick I can hack your personally identifiable information, right? So it's anybody can be hacked. So where we need to focus really comes down to, where should we be putting the money? And the other thing is that if you have any weakness in your security, are you really secure?
Right. Well, and talking about Kevin Mitnick again, I mean, he has the, he has a company doing audits and checks and everything for companies on security, and he has a 100% success rate
Yeah.
if they will let him use social engineering.
Mhm.
So, it's kind of a good example that if even if you do get targeted, um, that yeah, the chances of you getting through that and being okay or not being hacked is very, very slim.
Yeah. So yeah, the importance comes down to how quickly do you detect that breach and how
Hmm.
quickly do you
Yep.
respond to it. So I think that's where, companies like ours, where we have a focus on the total security package, is so vitally important, because, I can go into any business and I can ask them one question. There's three questions I'll ask them, but there's one I think that's the most important. And how comfortable are you in your ability to detect and respond to a cyber attack on your business? And we have a
Right.
flyer that we sent to everybody, right? That talks about,
Right.
this says 15 ways to protect your business, but that's just to kind of give you a checklist to go through of some things you can do to try to protect yourself. But what about the other two pieces, detection and response? And that's where
Yeah.
it's really important, right? How confident are these business owners in their ability to detect and respond? And if they say anything other than, wow, I'm not sure, they're probably not being completely honest, because realistically, unless they're truly monitoring 24/7, for those detection type elements to come through and then do something about it quickly, they're missing out. And the other thing is happening, and it's evident every single day of the week and every single week of the year. Companies are being breached. And that same article I mentioned about the Wall Street Journal, they said that every business in the United States has been breached to this point. So
Yeah.
it's not if, it's when, if it hasn't happened. And
Yeah.
it's happened. It's happened.
Yeah, and that document you referenced, everyone should have gotten a copy of that. But if there's anyone watching that hasn't, feel free to reach out to us, and would be happy to send you one. Um, Phone number would be 406-414-0532, or sales@wolfguardit.com. Um, but yeah, no, those are great points. I love the house, kind of painting that picture. You're not just locking your front door. There's a lot of other entry points and layers, to get through, you should have to try and get through,
Yeah.
before.
Another interesting thing about that is, think about taking any one of those things away, and how confident is somebody in their security at that point. If you take the
Mhm.
locks off the door, are they secure? If you take the motion detection or sensors off the alarm system,
Mm-hmm.
are they still secure?
Mhm.
If you don't have a dog, that you were counting on because you don't have an alarm system, how do you know if somebody's been in? If you're not there, let's say the whole family goes on vacation.
Mhm.
See, it's really, I think it's incumbent on us, as individuals, but also for our businesses, to have a complete security package. And if you don't, 99% secure is 100% unsecure. There's a guy on our channel that likes to say that, and I think that's completely true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Lance, what do you think? I don't know, when we go and do onboardings, almost all the time they have a firewall and antivirus, and they're like,
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to that.
Absolutely. And to John's point there, they think they're tackling the package, but they're tackling like 5% of step one. Right.
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
I have, as you were saying that, so much of the spend is on the prevention side, but not the detection and response. I have
Hmm.
never been into it in all my years of doing this, 20 plus years. I've never been into a business once that does anything more than part of step one. That's it, ever,
Yeah.
at any
Mhm.
size that I have ever been into. Even I mean now, larger enterprise, they're getting it right because they're all getting hit all the time. But when you get into anything smaller than that, so tiny business, small, medium, and even large medium, it's they might be spending a ton of money on the prevention. They got all this stuff, but they don't know if someone's in. They don't know the dwell time of an attacker on the network. They've no clue, and they have nothing in place to tell them that either.
Hmm.
They generally won't have a security operations center watching stuff in the background to make sure that, hey, you know what, that looks weird. What's up with that?
Mhm.
You know, that's not normal. We need to take a look at that, right? They don't have any of that. And so, you know, really, you know, when I started doing things in the fashion that the three of us do, that really became important very quickly when we discovered that. And this has been, you know, a handful of years now since this really became important. But it's not just about protection. That's literally just part of the equation, because at
Mhm.
the end of the day, if you get straight up targeted and they want in, it's like if someone really wants to steal your car, they're going to get the thing, you know,
Right.
unless you are in the car with the gun and the dog, the killer chihuahua, you're not going to stop them. They're going to get it, right? If you get targeted as a business, they will figure out a way in.
Right.
But once they do, what are your steps to get them out ASAP before it really causes a problem? And then,
And
you know,
limit
being
the
able to discover
impact.
how they did and shore that up really quickly so that that way can't happen again. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Absolutely.
sadly, yeah,
You know, there's several things that Lance hit on here, and if you look at the number one attack vector, over 90, it's like 90 something percent. I can't remember the exact number, but it's over 90% of all the attacks completely bypass a firewall and antivirus. That's
Mhm.
phishing
yep,
attacks.
yep.
They
Yep.
account
All, you
for
know, all
still
email.
over 90%. So, in other words, the firewall and antivirus are certainly a component of security, but protection only.
Yep.
And that's, I mean, 20 years ago that was enough, but it's not
Yeah,
anymore. Absolutely not, because phishing is the biggest, easiest, cheapest way for these guys to get in.
absolutely.
And yeah, it's, you have to have detection and response elements in place. So if you don't have true 24/7 monitoring, there's a lot of IT companies out there that'll say, yeah, we do 24/7 monitoring. Really? And how many of you are there? And
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
so it's easy to get
yeah,
you know, to the truth of that. They're doing best effort, and they're not constantly watching it. So you
yep.
do need a security operations center that's monitoring 24/7. So a lot of
Some
great stuff in there.
Something else to really keep in mind here is as more, and this is especially true since COVID, but even before then, companies are moving at lightning speed to cloud first. You know,
Mhm.
data is not, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but for a lot of, especially small business, but even into medium, their data is not totally residing on hardware that they have in the office, servers, desktops. It is in the cloud, and maybe some of it is synced to their computer, their tablet, their phone, but most of it isn't. It's cloud first.
Mhm.
So the antivirus that you have on your computer, it can't protect against anything that's hitting that cloud first stuff because it's not on your machine. The firewall
Mhm.
you have in your office, it can't help with the cloud first stuff because it's in your office. So you have to have, and this is one small piece of the puzzle, but it's a piece that almost everybody has ignored until recently, and it's something that all of us here provide. But you have to have protection for those cloud first elements where it is not handled by the antivirus or the anti-malware software on the computer or the server. It's a whole separate piece that also has to be in place with a security operations center watching it, because
Mhm.
that is now, if you target someone's cloud repository and you infect that with stuff, guess what? You just got a free ride to all of their employees. And if that stuff is being shared out, like for instance, Microsoft SharePoint is a great way to share resources with other businesses that you work with, maybe your vendors, maybe your client base. Well, if that gets attacked, now you're sharing out stuff that's already compromised. Well, now you just inadvertently compromised your client base, right? And so you have to
Right.
have stuff that's part of the puzzle there that protects against that, but then also is watching it, which is part of that detection. And then, of course, remediation. If
Mhm.
something were to happen, you got to know something's there to be able to remediate it.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Well, we're coming up on 20 minutes here, so I wanted to kind of on the end ask you guys a question, and feel free to talk on a couple minutes on it. But what would you consider to be the top three things that you would suggest for a company, to help protect themselves? And we've talked about a lot of different pieces here, and then of course there's a lot more security everyone should have. But just Lance, I'll let you go first. What would you consider to be the top three things? It could be any
Yeah.
different number of things.
So I will slightly cheat and say that
Okay.
you fix the top 3 by working with somebody who covers all of it. And so I would call that the top 1. But we'll just for a second, we'll say that for whatever reason that's off the table, and then that's not possible. The top 3 for me are going to be making sure that both for a physical standpoint, your computers, your servers, and for email-based threats, that you have protection in place across the board. And that comprises more than one solution to get that done. There's no one solution that will do all of that. It's usually several things you have to put together. Number 2 is you got to have something that tells you when things are out of the ordinary, and that is not antivirus software. It doesn't do that generally. But you have to have different things in place, which the 3 of us all do that for our client base. That will say this is not normal. Something's going on here. You need to go look at it. And then number 3 is you really need user education. Email-based threats, so phishing, what John was talking about, spear phishing when it's all internal, a lot of that can be dealt with before it becomes a problem by users being wary and cautious. We had a prospect of ours that got phished for ACH transactions going to and from a construction company doing a job for them, and they shelled out $300K to the wrong bank account because nobody bothered to pick up the phone to ask the construction company, hey, did you mean to change the bank account 3 times on this? Which would have solved the whole thing. I mean, just pick up the phone and make a call. Real simple, doesn't cost any money. Just pick up the phone and call. But nobody did. And that is straight down. Thankfully, it wasn't my client, so it wasn't, I hope it becomes my client so I can educate them. But, it was very simple, and it could have been changed, but because that education wasn't in place, they didn't stop to think.
Yeah, that's great. John, what would you say to be the top 3 things?
Well, I'll echo what Lance said. You need several layers of defense, and there's several layers to security. So when I say these 3 things, I'd almost say I'm going to focus on things that are probably easiest to do as well, and not that expensive if you were to do nothing else. And I agree with Lance on the security awareness training is absolutely vital. Over 80% of breaches occur because of employees. So that human firewall that you can create by getting them trained up is one of the most important things that you can do for your business.
And defense.
Yeah, it should be the first line, right? Because as long as everybody's been trained up on the basics, and we have ways of doing that for our clients, right? I mean, I provide that. They get weekly security tips. They get monthly newsletter that's focused strictly on security, and they have annual training, and they get a certificate for completing the training and everything. And we even gamify it a little bit by allowing them to kind of compete with each other. So that security awareness training is absolutely vital, and that's kind of like that human firewall, right? Because security starts with everybody, and it has to be on everybody's mind. And trust but verify, I guess, is a kind of a cliche. But anytime you get an email that looks a little bit fishy, as we'll say, pick up train your employees to pick up the phone and make a call if you weren't expecting an invoice or a shipping notice or whatever else, a DocuSign. Those are the most common ways they're coming in, right? So next, I'd say multi-factor authentication or 2-factor authentication. Most people are familiar with this because if they've got a bank type of account on their phone or something, they have to enter in that text that the bank sends them on their cell phone, right? Well, 2-factor or multi-factor authentication will prevent a great majority of those breaches that compromise things like your email address, passwords, and all that. So I'd say you definitely want to have multi-factor. That's going to probably defeat 95+% of the breaches that involve credentials. So that's an easy one. And it's kind of hard to put this in one category because it actually crosses over this last one here, because it is an advanced endpoint solution, but it has detection, and it also even checks your cloud stuff. And this is a solution that each of us have that we provide. It's a more comprehensive solution, but I think it is important to have a tool that checks every single type of file that's on a computer. Most antiviruses don't do that. It also checks everything online, and that's including phishing, which is, again, 91+%. It's over 90%. I can't remember the exact number. Over 90% of the attacks are happening through phishing. And when you consider that it was below 50% payout on ransomware, ransomware accounts for about 60% of all cyber attacks. When greater than 50% of the companies being ransomed or paying the ransom, do you think that ransomware is going to stop anytime soon? It's too
Just
huge of a
encouraging it.
payout. Yeah. And not to mention, on the dark web, they sell these things for as low as $120 a month. Somebody that doesn't even have any hacking experience can basically go into business, their own ransomware turnkey type of business, where all they got to do is plug in their Bitcoin account, and then they can change the name of it to whatever clever thing they come up with, and then attack businesses. The Colonial Pipeline hack was not done by DarkSide, who wrote the ransomware that hit them. That was one of their clients or customers that purchased that from them. That's why they made that statement when they came out, saying, we don't do this. We do this purely for financial reasons, right? Monetary reasons.
It's almost like white labeling.
Yeah,
It really is.
But our audience, we don't know if they know what white labeling means. But yeah, that was basically a hacking group sold that ransomware to somebody that paid them for that business to use it. Yeah. So that's why DarkSide came out and said, that wasn't us, and we don't typically go after something that would impact people.
Only wrote the package.
Yeah. So those would be my three things. But again, keep in mind, there's several layers to security. And if you don't have all of them, remember that saying, 99% secure is 100% unsecure, because if there's a will, there will be a way in. And, that's the thing you have to concentrate on really truly, is quickly detecting it and quickly responding to it to limit your risk. Otherwise, the longer it's out there, the more cost is going to be to the business that gets impacted.
And on document John, on that document that you're referencing, I think one of the points on there is cybersecurity insurance.
Absolutely. And I almost put that as my number 3. All right.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's one, I think it's overlooked by a lot of people.
Well, that's the very foundation. It's at the bottom of there because it's the very foundation of everything. More and more businesses have cyber insurance, that cyber breach insurance, and it is so vital, because you have to think. I think the average ransomware right now is close to 1.1 million or something like that. It's really super high. It used to be pretty low. Well, now it's really up there. All you got to do is put yourself in that situation. Could you survive that kind of a hit on your business? If you don't have cyber breach insurance, can you?
Yep. All right. Can I add something to that as well? I've noticed here just recently, there's a new phase of ransoming going on. So phase 1, and I've kind of numbered on myself, but phase 1 is they encrypt you, they ransom you, and they want money to get your files back. So that's the first one. So let's say you pay it, you don't, you have backups, whatever. Well, phase 2 was, okay, great. We want more money, or we're going to release all the data we have on you to the world, right? So which is extra bad if you have compliance that you're under, because now you have to report that, because now it's out there. Well, I've just discovered here in the last handful of weeks a phase 3. So now they have that data. So let's say that you didn't pay them the first time, you had the backups. We got it, and let's say that you did pay them the second time, so they wouldn't release it to the world. And let's just say that they honored that, right? Just for argument's sake. Well, phase 3 is they have that customer list that they got from you, that data. They're now going to those people who they haven't ransomwared, but they have data on, and they say, you have to pay us, or we're going to release your information to the world. So not only are they extorting you, but they're extorting everybody that they got from you. That could be your client base, your vendors, your partners, your employees, all of the above, government contacts, whatever. And so that's why it's so important to know, not only to protect against this kind of stuff, but to know when it happens, to be able to remediate it fast before something gets out.
Right.
Because, you talk about trust loss, nothing does it faster than when your contacts are getting extorted because your security was lacking.
Yeah, let me add 2 things to what Lance just said there. In January, Garmin was hacked, and they weren't going to pay the ransom because they had backups. And that's when that ugly head, that second phase that Lance mentioned, came up. And that is that, well, if you don't pay us, we're going to release this data. And they sent them a sample subset of the data that they retracted or that they got off of their systems. So they ended up paying it. That was a $10 million ransom. So that at that point, that was the largest ransom ever paid. And they got a lot of news for that, but not the kind of news that most businesses want, right?
Yeah.
Another phase that was out there, and I don't know if it's still going around because I haven't heard much about it, but there was a period of time there when the hackers were saying, well, we'll let you off the hook if you give us a couple of other people, give us their contact information. And basically, if you rat out somebody else, we'll let you off the hook, but we're going to ransom, a couple other people. So it's like, gosh, this is just pure evil, and it's
that
just,
gets you a lot of trouble with the law if that ever comes out, which it will.
I was going to say, you're not looking at just ransomware issues at that point. Yeah. Okay, well, we've come kind of to the end here, so I appreciate both of you going over this. It's a lot of great information, and we try not to preach doom and gloom to everybody, but we are here to help you, and we want to help you. So you can just reach out to us. We'll make the conversation very non-technical. We'll make it make sense to you on a business level, and kind of just walk you through this whole this whole process. So we're here for you. We want to help.
That's the great news part of it, right? That there is a way to deal with all this. You just have to have the right things in place, and that's what we all here can help you with. So
Right. Yeah. One last thing I wanted to bring up is that we have an ebook that we make available to everybody. And this is that when we've onboarded different companies over the years, we continually find different things that are just blatantly not addressed. And there are these critical issues that should be addressed, by your existing IT company, new IT company, whoever it is. But you can download this ebook, and it can be a talking point for you to talk to your existing IT or new IT if you're changing, to help you, just get some of these addressed. But also make sure to reach out and talk to your IT about cybersecurity specifically. Try and get that protection before it's too late. Yeah, thank you, Lance and John. I'll bring the banner off there so everyone can see your names. And thanks for joining me. And you guys have a good day.
Thank you. See you later.
thanks.
Thanks.